This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Radio 1.
I'm pleased to welcome onto the show this morning N. Chandramouli, CEO of Tre Research. And the reason he is here is because Radio 1 fared very, very well and landed up top of the heap in India's most attractive brands list in the category radio. And they've actually put out the report that justifies that, and we will come to that by and by. Wonderful to see you. How are you doing this morning?
Pleasure. Wonderful.
Let's start by a bit of a background on TRA. Your brand intelligence, data insights have really stunned the fraternity at large. And we want to know the makings behind TRA. What really prompted the invention of TRA, and where are you as of now?
So this started about 11 years ago, 2005-06, when we found there was a big vacuum in the advertising marketing fraternity world, where you would have no real data in order to be able to see where brands are moving and how they should move, which direction. Everybody had a measurement, but it was their own, so you didn't know which direction to commonly take, and therefore no common ground on which you could measure brands. So therefore we began kind of a quest wherein we wanted to know what that has to be. What does a brand have to measure over time such that it's enduring and also gives a direction to that particular brand year on year. Here we found a concept which is very important, and we felt the age that we are in today really kind of lends to that, which is the concept of buying propensity. So the keenness of a person to buy. Now there is nothing more enduring than that. And if you look at the world now, the age of selling is literally dead. You can't put your foot to the door and get your vacuum cleaner or any other product into the household or any other place. Even the mental door, you just can't put a foot anymore, because information arbitrage is more or less dead. So everybody knows the same things, whether it's a village or over here. Just the intrusion of the web through the phone has come to your doorstep, everybody's doorstep. So we decided that now the age of buying is in. You have to only allow a person to buy and therefore assist him to buy, and no more can a push happen. This kind of put us on a journey wherein we said, what is buying propensity made of? And after speaking to several hundreds of communication experts, sociologists, psychologists and anthropologists, basically buying or any transaction has impacts of all these four agencies. We essentially found that it has to have two things: trust at one end and the desire, which is attractiveness, at the other. So then we began measuring this, and today, after several years of research, we have 61 components of trust and 36 of attractiveness, which we call the brand trust matrix and the brand attractiveness matrix. And we essentially do a syndicated study right from 2011 to now, the 7th report in the making. And we do two studies every year. We do one of trust in the beginning and one of attractiveness in the latter half. In fact, Radio 1 is listed in the current one, which is the attractiveness report. And go to 3,000 consumer influencers every year, twice a year, therefore 6,000 people, and extract their unaided perceptions of brands on these components, 61 for trust and 36 for attractiveness. So when you see Radio 1 come up, it is completely unaided. We didn't say name a brand in radio. They just named it, and so you happen to be in the top 1,000 list, and that is extraordinary, because we've seen it for the first time that Radio 1 has come in, and it kind of is a coming of age of that particular brand.
Calvin Harris, Kelani, Lil Yachty. It's faking it. I'm Rishi K. Calvin Harris, really at the top of this game.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Radio 1.
N. Chandramouli is in studio. He's CEO at Tre Research. He's giving us an insight into what really goes into the making of TRA and everything they put out. So now that you've given us the parameters, tell me about your research partners. Who supplies data to you, if at all you would need that data to come through?
So essentially, very unfortunately, the area of research, especially market research, whether it be syndicated or for a particular company, has been fraught with trouble, which means that at the researching end, the people who are in the field are often not very well paid, and therefore there's a huge amount of data corruption that ends up happening. So we, from the very beginning, decided that we will have our own independent people who are trained by us, who go into the field at the field level. So at any given point in time, we have close to about 450 to 500 odd fieldwork people without any agency that directly controls them, but we work with them directly in terms of getting the data. But our statistical partners are ISI, Indian Statistical Institute, which is a Government of India body, one of the premier statistical institutes of the country, who helped us actually create a number for brand trust and for brand attractiveness. So we have a quotient today. If you say Tata's brand trust or Radio 1's brand attractiveness, we can actually give you a number.
Let's come back to Radio 1 and how well it fared in this particular report that you've put out. A little more on what we scored highly on.
So that's a matter for us to be able to go and mine data. I don't have it currently because it has to be mined. But essentially what I'll give you, this will give you a good example of what might have happened with Radio 1. So brand attractiveness effectiveness on which you kind of come top on FM channels, FM radio channels, is made up of 4 appeals. And these are the rational appeal, the emotional appeal, the communication appeal, and the aspirational appeal. So in these 4 areas, if you have started to create some kind of a noise, for example, creativity, you talk about differentiation in your channel, and creativity is a rational appeal concept because it kind of gives you a strategic ability to meet opportunities or some things like that. And therefore, you might have been scored high on creativity. You might have been scoring high on winner's attribute. You're a standalone channel and you're there for the last decade. You've got a great entrepreneur leading it, great people who are actually conducting shows, and therefore you can see that maybe winner's attributes are scored high. So such things are what constitute appeal as a whole. But to give you actual details, maybe you should just purchase a report.
Absolutely. Where can we get hold of a report? Can we go to your website and place an order? Give us the details on that, please.
No, actually, this is called as the actual buying propensity report. You kind of find out why the brand is bought, and it's kind of we mine into our data set and actually bring out to you features of your brand that will come out. So this has to be ordered in. Our research director Sachin Bhosle can help very much on that.
Great. More conversation up ahead with Chandramouli. Don't go anywhere.
94.3 Radio 1.
CJ Sweets for my sweet.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Rishi K.
Radio 1.
He's CEO of TRA and he's taking me through some very, very interesting material here. So, Chandramouli, some leading brands that have used your reports, its extensions, to enhance their brand scope and relevance. Tell us about that.
So, I'll tell you what this report essentially does. It's a report that's mined from this data. So, we have 20 million data points on 8,000 brands over the last 7-8 years. So, if you really want to go back in time and say what happened then and what's happening now, we can give you those kind of comparisons, and we call that the buying propensity report. So, brands which actually, it's an interesting anecdote that there is no precedent to this. I mean, there is nobody else who comes up with saying that I'll tell you how to be bought. And we started this in 2011, and by 12, the brand which was at number 3 went down to number 5, which is Sony. And it was at number 3 in the first year, it went down to number 5. And we were still trying to sell this concept of buying propensity and the fact that we can mine data and tell you how to go up. And this is interesting. Nobody listened. So unfortunately, we were banging doors. We couldn't even get them to open. And of a sudden break, there's a call that comes into our landline from Japan, and somebody in a Japanese accent speaks to our research head, and he essentially says that, you know what, I would like to know why we fell. And that's our first report being sold, somebody who really wanted to know. And today we have brands like LG, Samsung, Sony, I mean, you've got Amazon, and the entire litany of the brands that you might actually talk about, who take our data, Dell, HP, they all take our data in order to say that how do we make ourselves, more buyable. And therefore we give them basically some very few pointers and very, very precise pointers on what you should act on and what you should communicate. Those are things that we tell them, and they are able to apply that in their marketing communications effectively.
Also, as an author, you yourself have put out the India's most trusted education institutions.
We did.
That is of particular interest to me. Tell me a little bit about that.
So this happened from a point of view that most media publications come out with such reports regularly, and invariably there's a listing there. And unfortunately, again, it has its own problems of being tampered with possibilities. So we said that one of the biggest investments that a family and an individual makes in India is in education. And you would see parents pledging their houses to ensure that the kid is educated right. And you wanted a place, and this is not a place where you only get a degree. You get life skills, you understand values, you understand culture, you kind of make yourself in that period. So we said this is necessary for us to kind of come out with India's most trusted educational institute, and it must go across borders. Usually you'll only find the technical education institutes or the management education institutes come out as a list, and we literally wanted from the kindergarten or preschool right up to post-graduation to come into the same list. And therefore we did a 40-city survey, one of the largest surveys ever done in the country, with 12,000 individuals which constituted parents, educationists, students of various types, and went to each one of these places and actually interviewed them on 97 different parameters to extract this data. And therefore we came out with that list for the very first time. Only very unfortunately there was nobody who was ready to take data, so it didn't sell well. So it had to only have one issue of that.
Before you go, could you tell us where we can reach out to you? Do you have an email ID, or is there a website that people can go to?
We do. In fact, Sachin at trustadvisory.info. He's the research director. That's
Sachin at trustadvisory.info. Yeah.
And our website is www.trustadvisory.info. And it contains everything, including what we do, how we do it, what are the reports, how they'll help you, and the likes.
Chandramouli, thanks for your time. And
Such
see you
a pleasure.
soon. Cheers.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.
94.3 Radio 1.